Hello everyone, before the start of the video I would like to request you all to like, subscribe, that's it. Thank you and enjoy. Chapter 75, The Start of the Auction. The limousine pulled up to a 6-story building on the desolate edge of the city. Before they stepped out, Jacob turned to the girls. Alright, we need aliases. I'll be Jack and Cogman is Walter. What about you two? I'll be Jeanne, Allison said. It's the middle name of the maid of Gévaudan. Lydia followed suit. And I'll be Ariel. Jean and Ariel, it is, Jacob said with a nod. He then took 2 normal senzu beans from his pocket dimension and gave them to Allison and Lydia. These are senzu beans. Eat one only if you are seriously injured and near death. They can heal any injury and restore a person's physical condition to its peak instantly. Use them wisely. I only have 2. If you only have 2, then what about you? Allison asked. I don't need them, Jacob said. Now put them away and let's go. Lydia and Allison stored the beans in their rings, and the group exited the car. They approached a heavy steel door, guarded by 2 large men in black suits. One stepped forward, his expression professionally blank. He didn't even blink at Jacob's grotesque disguise. In this auction, anonymity was the norm. Invitation, the guard stated flatly. Jacob, slipping perfectly into the Joker's manic persona, produced one of the 3 invitation cards he possessed, this one taken from the wizard. He smiled, a wide, unsettling grin that made the guards tense. Here you go, my friend, Jacob said, his voice a playful, gravelly drawl, but tell me, do you want to see a magic trick? The 2 guards exchanged a wary glance. The one who had spoken took a subtle step back. No, sir, we don't want to see a magic trick. He gestured for his partner to open the door, adding under his breath, I've seen what the Joker does to people when he shows them his tricks. Jacob's shoulders slumped in theatrical disappointment. Fine, it's your loss, anyway. He leaned in, his smile widening. But don't worry, I promise I'll show you a magic trick on my way out. With that chilling promise hanging in the air, they were ushered inside. A silent attendant guided them into the main auction hall. It wasn't a venue with private rooms, but a single, vast space on the first floor, arranged like a high-end restaurant. Round tables draped in white linen were set around a central stage. 20 tables filled the room, though only 12 were occupied. Jacob's group was led to a table for 4. As they sat, he immediately noticed the couple at the next table. Their scent was a potent cocktail of anxiety and fear. The man kept adjusting his tie, and the woman's hands trembled slightly in her lap. Around the room, other attendees hid their identities behind elegant masks, heavy hoods, or oversized sunglasses. Jacob and his group decided not to take action immediately, choosing instead to watch and see just how evil humans could be. As they settled, waiters began serving food to each table, elegant plates of steak, roasted vegetables, and other delicacies. Jacob's group didn't touch theirs. He heard the nervous woman from the next table whisper to her companion, "Should we eat to blend in?" The man, looking relieved for a distraction, nodded, "Sure." He picked up his fork and was about to cut into the steak. Jacob smirked, not turning his head. In the Joker's voice, he said casually, "I wouldn't eat that if I were you." He paused for dramatic effect, then slowly turned his horrifying smile toward them. "Unless you like human flesh, of course." He turned back to face the stage, leaving the couple frozen in horror. The man's fork clattered loudly onto his plate, and the woman let out a stifled gasp, her face turning a sickly pale. Many of the other attendees, possessing supernatural hearing, had overheard. Some smiled knowingly, while others glanced warily at the nervous couple before turning their attention back to their own plates. A few minutes later, the lights dimmed, focusing all attention on the stage. A man and a woman, dressed in impeccably tailored evening wear, stood at the center. "Ladies and gentlemen," the man began, his voice smooth and commanding, "welcome. We are so pleased you could join us for this evening's auction. Let us begin." The auction started calmly. The first items were rare magical herbs, potions, and preserved organs from normal humans and lesser supernatural creatures. Next came artifacts, a dagger that never lost its edge, a mirror that showed a person's greatest fear. The attendees participated with raised paddles, their voices calm and measured, though most refrained from bidding, seemingly uninterested in these initial items. The auction continued its descent into hell. Vials of werewolf blood, a still-beating vampire heart, and a pair of live, terrified teenage were-jaguar twins clinging to each other in a reinforced cage were paraded across the stage. Beautiful shapeshifters and normal humans were sold, for purposes the auctioneers only hinted at with vile euphemisms. The room was a gallery of horrors, and the attendees were eager collectors, their paddles rising one after another to claim their prizes. Jacob felt Lydia stiffen beside him. He placed a calming hand on her arm, his gaze fixed forward, an evil smirk plastered on his disguised face. He spoke to both girls telepathically. "Don't worry, we will save them, and the evil people behind this auction won't live past tonight." The man and woman at the next table were now even more nervous and scared. They had been shocked when the auction began, with items like organs and other body parts said to belong to supernatural creatures. But when they saw the glowing eyes of the shapeshifters inside the cages, they were truly frightened. Jacob glanced at them, then simply shook his head and ignored them. Then came the main attraction. A cage was wheeled onto the stage, containing a terrified young woman with faintly glowing eyes. "A fledgling villa," the female auctioneer announced, as if describing a piece of art. For those who don't know, a villa is a shapeshifter with charming abilities. She can enchant men and influence their minds. She can also transform into a bird-like being with a beaked head and scaly wings. A wonderful item for collectors who appreciate beautiful creatures. And, of course, she can be used for experiments and potions as well. Do we start the bidding at 1 million? The crowd went wild, bidding one after another until the price soared to 6 million. After a few more less remarkable items were auctioned, Jacob had seen enough. He spoke to Lydia telepathically. "Lydia, look at the couple on the other side of the room, the ones wearing wolf masks. I want you to tell me the first thing that pops into your head when you look at them. Don't overthink it." Lydia glanced at them and said telepathically, "Anger, hatred, anxiety, and desperation. I think they're bad people." Jacob nodded. "All right, it's time to act." He spoke to both Lydia and Allison telepathically. "And don't kill two idiots next to us. They're just normal humans, probably cops, who got in over their heads. As for the two with the wolf masks, since Lydia thinks they're not bad, I'll read their memories to confirm before we decide what to do with them." "Jay," Allison said, her mental voice tense, "the three people with no masks near the stage are a wizard and two witches. I saw them in the memories you showed us from the wizard you fought. You should be careful when dealing with them." "Yow," Jacob responded, his mental tone cold and focused. "I'll kill them before they can cast a spell, and I won't make the same mistake again and touch a wizard with my bare hands." Jacob stood up and began clapping slowly. "What a wonderfully evil show I just witnessed." He started walking toward the stage. The male auctioneer's voice was tense. "Please return to your seat, sir." Jacob ignored him and continued walking. The man's eyes glowed red, and he growled, "Sir, if you don't go back to your seat, I will have to make you leave." Jacob stepped onto the stage. "Do you want to see a magic trick?" The man growled, "No, get back to your seat or leave." A military-grade knife appeared in Jacob's hand from his pocket dimension. He addressed the crowd. "How about you guys? Do you want to see this knife disappear?" A man in gothic clothes, sipping red wine, smiled. "I do love a magic trick. Go on, clown. Show us your trick." "All right," Jacob said. "Watch closely." The auctioneer tried to grab Jacob, but Jacob dodged by dropping into a crouch. He planted the handle of the dagger firmly into the wooden stage. When the auctioneer lunged for him again, Jacob caught his arm, yanked him down with blinding speed, grabbed the back of his head, and slammed his face directly onto the upright blade. The knife stabbed clean through the auctioneer's skull. Jacob stood up and bowed to the crowd. A few people even clapped for him. Lydia sighed. "He's taking his Joker role a little too seriously." "Should we join him, my ladies?" Cogman asked. "Not yet," Allison said. "Let him have his fun first." Jacob turned to the female auctioneer with a smirk. "Now, it's your turn." The woman wasn't scared. "I don't know who you are or what you think you're doing, but you are not leaving this building alive, I promise you that. You crazy bastard." Jacob licked his lips. I'm not crazy or a bastard. I am not. He felt movement behind him and turned to find the man he had just stabbed standing up, the knife still lodged in his face. Jacob wasn't surprised. The man was a shapeshifter, and his glowing red eyes meant he is an alpha. Jacob smirked. How did you like my magic trick? The man growled. You're dead. He ripped the knife from his face and threw it aside. Then he shifted, growing taller as his suit tore apart. Brown fur sprouted all over his body until he stood as a 3-meter-tall werebear. He swung a massive paw at Jacob, but Jacob caught it with ease, shocking both the werebear and the crowd. Jacob looked at the audience. Now, let me show you another trick. I will saw this bear in half. Watch. He used his earth element, and with a wave of his hand, a stone table materialized behind the werebear. The creature struggled to free its paw from Jacob's iron grip, but couldn't. Jacob then channeled electricity through his hand, shocking the werebear until it nearly lost consciousness, twitching violently with smoke pouring from its mouth. Quickly, Jacob lifted the massive form onto the stone table. He used his earth element again, causing 2 rock boxes to form around the upper and lower halves of the werebear's body, leaving its head, feet, and a small section in the middle exposed. The katana, shusui, appeared in his hand. Jacob coated the blade with crackling electricity and swung. The sword cut clean through the werebear, slicing him in 2 at the waist. Jacob bowed to the crowd once more. What do you think of my trick this time? Look, he's still alive, even though I cut him in half. Blood pooled on the stage, and the bisected werebear vomited blood before shifting back to human form and dying. The crowd was now visibly concerned, starting to fear for their own safety. No one clapped this time. Jacob looked out at them. You guys didn't like my trick? He glanced at the dead man and scratched his head, muttering, is it because he died that they didn't like it? He turned back to the crowd with an evil smile. How about one of you volunteers? I promise I'll cut you in half without killing you. He scanned the room. How about it? Anyone want to volunteer? Raise your hands. When no one responded, Jacob looked back at the female auctioneer, who was staring in a daze. No one wants to volunteer, so I guess we'll have to make do with you. The woman snapped back to reality and tried to flee, but Jacob caught her. He inserted his claws into the back of her neck, reading her memories. What he saw filled him with such fury that he stopped playing. With a sharp twist, he broke her neck, killing her instantly. He turned to Allison, Lydia, and Cogman, his voice cold and decisive. Walter, Jeannie. Except for the 2 people next to our table and the 2 with the wolf masks. Kill everyone else. Chapter 76. Chaos in the Auction Room. Most of the people attending the auction were supernatural. When they heard Jacob's command to kill them all, they immediately rose to their feet. Glowing eyes of various hues, red, yellow, white, blue, fixed on Jacob on the stage, while others watched Cogman and the girls with predatory vigilance. A man near the back stood, holding his hands up. I know what grudge you have with the auction house, but I want no part of it. I'm leaving. Jacob simply stomped his foot. With a deafening rumble, thick walls of solid earth erupted from the floor, slamming shut over every exit and sealing the room like a tomb. Sorry, buddy, Jacob said, his voice echoing in the sudden silence. None of you are leaving here alive. The wizard and 2 witches near the stage didn't say anything. They looked at each other, and with a nod, they stood as one. Their hands were already weaving intricate patterns in the air, lips moving in a guttural chant. But Jacob didn't give them a chance to finish their spells. He coated his entire body with lightning, and in the blink of an eye, he vanished from the stage and reappeared amidst them. A silver blur, Shusui, his katana coated with lightning, cut through the air once, twice, 3 times. The spells died on their lips as 3 heads tumbled to the floor, their bodies slumping a moment later. The smell of ozone, blood, and burnt flesh filled the air. The man in gothic clothes, realizing Jacob was the greater threat, made a calculated decision. He became a blur of motion, his speed carrying him not toward Jacob, but straight for Lydia, the seemingly vulnerable one. But Lydia, who was paying close attention and focusing so she wouldn't be a burden to Jacob and Allison, was ready. She raised a hand, and a shimmering, semi-transparent energy shield materialized around her an instant before impact. The man slammed face first into the energy barrier with a sickening crunch. The sound of his nose shattering was audible as the rebound sent him flying backward through the air, disoriented and stunned. Before his body could hit the ground, Jacob was there. He met him mid-air, Shusui held in a two-handed grip. The blade fell in a vertical arc, cleaving the man cleanly from head to crotch. The two halves of the man landed with a wet thud, but to Jacob's mild interest, they continued to writhe. Jacob looked down at the twitching halves, noting the dark veins around the man's eyes and his sharp fangs. A vampire, huh? He took a bank card from the vampire and said, "Let's see if you can survive this." He waved a hand dismissively, and a torrent of fire erupted from his palm, engulfing the two halves and incinerating the vampire, leaving only a pile of ash that scattered across the floor. There were still 30 people in the room, excluding the 4 Jacob had decided not to kill. 10 of them were normal human hunters, now desperately looking for cover. "Walter, Jean," Jacob commanded, his voice cutting through the panic. "Make quick work of them." The room erupted into chaos. Cogman moved with mechanical precision. He approached a table where 2 Wendigos were beginning their transformation, their mouths filled with sharp, jagged yellow teeth, their eyes glowing white as they hissed at him. Cogman sighed and said, "I wish I had more time to play with you, but unfortunately, I don't." His hands shot out with impossible speed, fingers like steel talons. There was a wet, tearing sound as he plunged his hands into their chests and ripped out their still-beating hearts, crushing them in his fists before the creatures could even scream. Allison, her eyes glowing a fierce green, raised her hands. Dozens of razor-sharp arrows made of condensed wind materialized in the air around her. With a flick of her wrists, they shot forward with a sound like 100 arrows being loosed at once. The group of unarmed hunters caught in the open had no defense. The wind arrows pierced their bodies with brutal efficiency, dropping them to the floor in puddles of blood and ending their lives. Lydia felt a wave of nausea, her stomach churning at the violence. But then she remembered the terrified Vila, the helpless caged women, the caged teenage were-jaguar twins, and the jars of preserved organs. Her resolve hardened. She took a deep, steadying breath and stepped into the fray. She walked purposefully toward a beta werewolf with glowing blue eyes who was charging her with a snarl. She didn't flinch. Opening her mouth, she released a concussive wave of sound that hit him like a physical battering ram, lifting him off his feet and sending him crashing into the far wall. Before he could shake off the daze and rise, she was upon him. She focused, and this time released a tightly controlled, high-pitched frequency directly at his head. The werewolf clutched his ears, a scream dying in his throat as blood began to trickle from his eyes, nose, and ears. His skull vibrated violently until, with a final, sickening pop, it exploded, painting the wall behind him. Lydia turned away, swallowing hard, but steadied herself and moved toward her next opponent. Jacob was a whirlwind of destruction. He moved through the remaining shapeshifters, a blur of elemental fury. He burned one in a pillar of fire, electrocuted another until he convulsed into a charred husk, and impaled a third on a spike of rock that erupted from the floor. Then he cut 7 other shifters to pieces with his katana. Allison, having cleared the hunters, engaged 3 more shapeshifters. She dodged a claw swipe and retaliated with a scything blade of wind that cut one in half at the waist. She peppered another with wind arrows, and with a final, sharp gesture, summoned a vortex that lifted the third and slammed him into the ceiling with bone-shattering force before cutting him in half with a wind slash. Cogman, meanwhile, finished his gruesome work. His forearm shifted, revealing the muzzles of integrated laser guns. With 4 precise, humming bursts of blue light, he drilled neat, smoldering holes through the heads of the final 4 targets. They dropped to the floor before they even knew what hit them. Jacob collected his military knife from the stage and put it away in his pocket dimension, then turned his attention to the couple with the wolf masks, who shrank back as he approached. "Tell me why you're here." His tone was flat and final, a demand, not a question. "You didn't bid on anything, and I could smell your anger and anxiety the moment I entered this room." The man stepped forward, placing his body as a shield in front of the woman. "We're werewolves from a small town near Phoenix," he confessed, his voice strained. "We're here for our daughter. She was kidnapped, and all the leads pointed to this place." "Let me read your memories," Jacob stated flatly. "I will only confirm the truth of what you just said. I won't pry into anything else." The man hesitated for a heartbeat, then gave a stiff nod. Jacob's claws extended and gently pressed against the back of the man's neck. A flood of images and emotions washed over him, a girl's laughter, a frantic search, a desperate, aching hope. He withdrew his claws. "You're telling the truth," Jacob said. "You have nothing to fear from us. We came here to destroy this place. And your daughter is here, in the basement. She was scheduled to be sold next week. I saw her in the auctioneer's memories." The woman let out a choked sob, her hands flying to her mouth. "Really? Is she safe?" "She's in a cage, but she appears unharmed," Jacob reassured her. "Thank you," the woman whispered, tears streaming down her face. She gripped her husband's arm. "George, let's go. We have to save our baby girl." "Wait," Jacob commanded, holding up a hand. "There are people outside the walls I made. They're trying to get in. If I weren't constantly reinforcing the walls with my magic, they'd already be inside. They're probably armed with all kinds of weapons, including wolfsbane." The woman's face fell. "Then, what should we do?" "Wait until Walter collects all the bank cards," Jacob instructed. "Then we'll deal with the threat outside and help you rescue your daughter." His gaze then shifted to the other couple, who were huddled together. "And you? I assume you're cops." The man, still visibly shaking, managed to find his voice. "We're FBI agents. We were following a human trafficking case. We caught a suspect with an invitation to this place and came to investigate." Jacob smirked. "By your scent, I can tell you found more than you were looking for, huh?" "Our scent?" the female agent asked, bewildered. "You reek of fear and anxiety," Jacob clarified. "I'm assuming you had no idea the supernatural was real." The man gave a shaky nod. "Yeah, we had no clue we were walking into a freak show." "Welcome to the real world," Jacob said dryly. Just then, Cogman returned, holding a stack of bank cards. He handed them to Jacob. "Sir, please keep these safe until we return. I'm afraid I might lose them in the upcoming fight." Jacob took the cards and stored them in his pocket dimension. "All right," he said, his voice taking on a commander's tone. "Jean, Ariel, and Walter, you three will head to the basement and rescue the prisoners." "What about you?" Allison asked, her concern evident. "I'm going upstairs to deal with the rest of the people in this building," Jacob stated, his gaze turning toward the ceiling as if he could see through the floors. "This place is just a branch. The organization behind it holds auctions in many other states. The ones in charge here are a man and two women. I don't know what they are, only that the werebear was terrified of them, according to the auctioneer's memories." "Then be careful," Lydia said. "You guys too," Jacob said, "because one of the women is guarding the basement. Let me show you." He closed his eyes, and a moment later the memories of the auctioneer flooded into the minds of Allison and Lydia. They saw it all. The sterile, blood-stained concrete of the basement, the cold iron bars of overcrowded cages, the hollow eyes of captives waiting to be sold like livestock or dismembered for parts. They saw children of all ages huddled in fear, and they witnessed, through the auctioneer's cold gaze, the brutal butchering of supernatural beings that had been going on for years. A wave of pure, incandescent rage washed over Allison and Lydia. Allison's hands clenched into fists, her knuckles white. Jack, she corrected herself, her voice trembling with fury. "We have to destroy this place." Jacob gave a grim, single nod. "You guys just deal with that woman in the basement as quickly as possible. Rescue the people in the cages, then get them out. I will burn this place to its foundations." "All right," Allison nodded. Jacob then turned to the two FBI agents. "What about you? What are you going to do?" The male agent straightened his shoulders, a flicker of professional duty overcoming his fear. "We'll help." "You can't help," Jacob said bluntly, "but you can go with them to the basement. Try not to get in the way. But first, let's go to the backstage and release the people who were brought up here to be sold tonight." With that, they moved to the backstage area, sealed by one of Jacob's earth walls. Upon entering, they found 6 nervous employees there. Cogman didn't give them a chance to say a word. He moved through them like a phantom, his movements a blur of lethal precision. There were brief choked cries and the sickening sound of snapping bones, and then silence. They then proceeded to unlock the cages that were made of iron mixed with mountain ash. The first to emerge was the beautiful Vila, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and desperate hope. She was followed by 6 other women, 4 shapeshifters of various kinds, and 2 normal humans, and the 2 teenage were-jaguar twins. Then, they helped them open their chains and the shocking collars around their necks. As the prisoners were freed, the air in the room changed. Relief was quickly overshadowed by a smoldering collective rage. They had been treated as objects, and now they wanted vengeance. One of the shapeshifters, a woman with sharp features and a predator's grace, stepped forward. "Can I join you?" she asked Jacob, her voice a low growl. "I want to help you fight the monsters who run this place." Jacob looked over the group, seeing the same fiery resolve in every pair of eyes, even the 2 normal women who stood tall despite their fear. "Sure," he said. "Anyone who wants to fight can go to the basement with Jean's group. Help them kill the guards while they deal with the woman guarding the basement." Without another word, the newly freed victims formed a grim, determined procession behind Allison and Lydia. Before leaving, Jacob collected the artifacts from the auction. He stored the dagger that never lost its edge in his pocket dimension. Then he picked a mirror that showed a person's greatest fear. Against his better judgment, he looked into it. The glass swirled, and a horrifyingly vivid image formed: Allison and Lydia, lying broken and lifeless in a pool of blood. A cold dread gripped his heart. He cursed under his breath, and, without a second thought, unleashed a jet of fire from his palm, reducing the evil mirror to a pile of molten slag and ash. Lydia, seeing his reaction, asked, "What did you see?" Jacob shook his head, his face pale. "I shouldn't have looked into the stupid evil thing, and I'm not telling you what I saw. It was a nightmare." He turned sharply toward the main exit, where his earth wall still stood. "All right, let's go." They gathered before the solid wall of rock. "Listen up," Jacob announced. "After I open this door, Walter and I will come out first to eliminate the hostiles waiting outside. The rest of you, be careful not to get shot. They're likely armed with all kinds of firearms, flashbangs, and wolfsbane grenades." With a gesture, the earth wall dissolved into dust. Immediately, a hailstorm of gunfire erupted from the hallway, accompanied by tear gas grenades and blinding flashbangs. Jacob simply waved a hand, and a massive fire snake erupted from his palm. It surged forward, its maw wide open, swallowing the tear gas grenades and flashbangs, and continued its advance, forcing the panicked guards to scatter and dive for cover. In that moment of chaos, Jacob and Cogman became blurs of motion, streaking out of the auction room and into the hallway. The hunt was on. The 20 guards, trained and well-armed, were utterly outmatched. They were hunted down in the corridors, cut down by Jacob's katana, or having their hearts ripped out by Cogman. None survived. On the 6th floor, in an office, a strikingly beautiful woman named Elena sat stroking a massive albino python coiled around her shoulders. A faint frown marred her perfect features as she picked up a radio. "John, report. Did you find out what is happening in the auction room yet?" From the surveillance room on the 4th floor, a frantic voice replied, "No, ma'am. Someone has completely taken over the building's security system. The cameras are down, the elevators are locked, and I can't even open the damn door to get out of the surveillance room. It's sealed shut, but I sent Carl and 19 guards to check the 1st floor." Elena's voice turned to ice. "You will regain control of the building's security system, John, or you will not live to see the morning." She didn't wait for a reply, cutting the channel and switching to Carl's frequency. "Carl, report. What is the situation?" Instead of Carl's voice, a distorted, manic laugh echoed from the radio, a sound that was pure chaos. "Ah ha 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 ha! Oh, hey, hey, whoa ha ha ha!" Elena shot up from her chair, the python hissing in agitation. "You are not Carl. Who are you?" The voice replied with chilling glee, "I'm the monster that monsters like you fear, and I'm coming for you, bitch! Ah ha 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 ha!" The radio call ended, leaving only static and the echo of Jacob's maniacal laughter. Elena bit her perfectly manicured nail, a sign of anxiety. She quickly took her phone and made a call. A deep, calm male voice answered. "Elena, what's going on?" "Dmitri, get back here, now!" she hissed. We're under attack by someone extremely dangerous. He's already killed 20 of our guards and probably everyone in the auction room. You know what that means. Most of the participants were powerful shapeshifters, and there was a vampire, a wizard, and 2 witches there tonight. There was a brief pause on the other end before Dmitri responded, his voice now sharp and serious. All right, love, I'm on my way. Chapter 77, The Basement Battle. In the blood-spattered hallway outside the auction room, Jacob turned to Lydia and Allison, his expression serious. Okay, head to the basement and deal with that woman, he instructed. Be careful. Attack her from a distance and don't let her get close. Always remember to use your energy shields and leave the building as soon as you free the prisoners. He then shifted his gaze to Cogman. Keep an eye on them. Don't get so lost in the fun of maiming people that you let them get hurt. I won't let them come to harm, sir, Cogman assured him. Jacob gave a nod. All right, I'm going up. See you outside. He turned to leave, but Allison's voice stopped him. Wait, can you give me the katana? I think it will complement my wind attacks. Sure, Jacob said without hesitation, handing her Shusui. He then looked at Lydia. How about you? Do you need a weapon? Give me your bracelet, Lydia requested. Jacob removed the alien energy blaster from his wrist and handed it over. You can control it with your mind. Lydia wore the bracelet on her wrist. A moment of concentration was all it took for her to feel the psychic connection with it. With a thought, it morphed into a dangerous-looking blaster, then seamlessly shifted back to its bracelet form. Thanks, she said. I'll give it back when we're done. Give it to Walter afterward, Jacob said. See if he can replicate it or make something similar for you and Jeannie. All right, time to go, Allison said, her grip tightening on Shusui's hilt. Jack, be careful. You too, Jacob replied, before walking toward the stairs leading to the upper floors. The group accompanying Allison and Lydia armed themselves with rifles and sidearms taken from the dead guards. Cogman then led them to the elevator, activated it, and they descended into the depths of the building. As the elevator descended, Allison and Lydia activated their energy shields. With a synchronized effort, they combined them, forming a larger, stronger dome of shimmering energy that enveloped the entire group just as the elevator slowed to a halt. The moment the doors slid open, a storm of gunfire erupted from the dimly lit basement hallway, hammering against the energy barrier in a futile, deafening cacophony. Dozens of rounds flattened against the shield and dropped harmlessly to the floor like metallic rain. The armed members of their group didn't need an order. They stepped forward from behind the protective dome and returned fire with brutal efficiency, killing surprised guards in a short, sharp exchange. When the gunfire ceased, only one figure remained standing at the far end of the hallway. She was an Asian woman with cold, glowing red eyes. Behind her, 6 spider legs sprouted from her back, the very limbs she had used to effortlessly deflect the bullets meant for her. Allison studied the woman warily. Old man, what is she? Cogman's analytical voice cut through the tension. She is a spider shapeshifter. The possibilities include an Arachne, an Anansi, a Tsuchigumo, or a Jorogumo. Given her ethnicity, she is most likely either a Tsuchigumo or a Jorogumo. The woman didn't wait for further analysis. She moved with shocking speed, lunging forward to strike the energy barrier with her sharpened spider legs. The impact was immense, a powerful thrum resonating through the shield, but the barrier held firm. The rebound sent her skidding backward, but she instantly recovered, shooting a thick strand of white silk from her mouth to anchor herself to the ceiling, where she hung upside down, staring at them with predatory intensity. "Who are you people?" she hissed. Cogman said, "My ladies, do you have a mirror with you?" "I have one," Lydia said. "Why?" "Look at that woman's reflection, and tell me what you see," Cogman instructed. Both Lydia and Allison retrieved small mirrors from their spatial rings and angled them toward the inverted woman. In the glass, her beautiful human form was gone, replaced by the horrifying visage of a giant, hairy spider with glowing red eyes. "What did you see?" Cogman asked. "I saw a giant spider with red eyes," Lydia reported, her voice steady. "Me too," Allison confirmed, snapping her compact mirror shut. Then she is a Yorogumo, Cogman declared, a cannibalistic creature, a spider shapeshifter from Japan. She seduces men, binds them with her silk, and devours them. She is also known as the whore spider. Her abilities include producing strong, sticky silk, a hypnotic voice that can mesmerize men, deadly venom, and control over other spiders. Her reflection will always reveal her true, monstrous nature. Okay, Allison said, her resolve hardening. Walter, you keep watch from the side. Let me and Ariel deal with the whore. Don't interfere unless it's necessary. She then looked at the werewolf couple. You guys, deal with any remaining guards in this basement and release the prisoners. George gave a grim nod. We will. Allison unsheathed Shusui, the blade singing as it left the scabbard, which she then stored in her spatial ring. Ariel, she said, her voice calm and focused. Are you ready? Lydia willed her energy blaster to activate. Yes. They deactivated the energy shield and stepped forward to face the Spider-Woman. Seeing them deactivate the shield, the Jorogumo attacked with blinding speed, but Allison was ready. With a fluid, powerful swing of Shusui, she unleashed a crescent-shaped wind slash that screamed through the air. The Spider-Woman leaped to avoid it, but she wasn't fast enough. The slash cleanly severed two of her spider legs, which clattered to the floor, twitching. But the victory was short-lived. The Yorogumo jumped away from Allison, and within seconds, the severed limbs twitched and began to regenerate from the stumps. Enraged, the Yorogumo opened her mouth, not to speak, but to spray a jet of murky green venom. Allison and Lydia reopened their energy shields. The corrosive liquid splashed against their combined shield, sizzling and smoking as it tried to eat through the barrier. Disgusting, Allison muttered. She waved her free hand, and a powerful gust of wind swept the poison away, splattering it against the walls, which began to corrode. Then, with a series of precise flicks of Shusui, she sent multiple, smaller wind slashes slicing through the air. The Spider-Woman twisted and tried to avoid the attacks, but she couldn't avoid them all. She shrieked in pain and fury as the wind slashes hit her, opening deep, bleeding wounds on her body. Yet, even as she bled, the wounds began to close. Realizing she was at a disadvantage in her hybrid form, she decided to stop holding back. With a sickening crunch of shifting bones, her body expanded, transforming fully into a monstrous giant spider, nearly filling the width of the hallway. She now ignored the smaller wind slashes, which bounced off her hardened carapace without causing any real damage. One of her giant spear-like legs slammed into their combined energy shield. The impact was colossal, sending visible shockwaves through the barrier and forcing both girls a step back from the sheer force. But the shield, strained and shimmering violently, held firm. She's too strong in this form, Lydia yelled, her voice strained as another thunderous blow from a spider leg made their combined shield flicker. Indeed, Allison agreed, her mind racing. Ariel, keep her busy. I need a minute to concentrate. Lydia gave a sharp nod, her eyes narrowing with focus. As the Jorogumo gathered herself for another charge, Lydia opened her mouth and unleashed a concussive sonic scream. The visible wave of sound hit the massive creature square in her chest, stopping her advance dead and sending her rolling backward until she slammed against the far wall. How do you like my voice, you ugly, overgrown pest? Lydia taunted, firing a searing blue bolt from her energy blaster that scorched a deep black furrow across the Yorogumo's back. Enraged, the creature stood, with a furious chittering sound, unleashed a thick, sticky net of silk. Lydia simply teleported, the net landing harmlessly where she'd just been standing. She reappeared on the spider's flank and let loose another deafening scream, sending the monster crashing into the wall once more. This dangerous dance continued. Lydia would disorient the beast with her screams, scorch the spider with her blaster, and teleport away before the spider could retaliate. While she couldn't inflict lasting damage due to the creature's hard carapace and rapid regeneration, she expertly held her attention, carefully avoiding her venomous sprays and silk traps. While Lydia played her lethal game of tag, Allison closed her eyes, raising her hands. The stagnant basement air began to hum, then whine, as she gathered every gust and breeze in the stagnant basement. A vortex of emerald energy swirled into existence between her palms, spinning faster and faster as it formed a massive 2-meter-long wind arrow. With immense effort, Allison compressed it further, squeezing the chaotic energy down into a dense, lethally focused projectile less than half a meter long. It glowed with a terrifying, barely contained power, humming like a hornet's nest. Ariel, get behind me now, Allison shouted. Lydia didn't hesitate. She teleported behind Allison in an instant. Allison thrust her hands forward. The compressed wind arrow vanished from sight. It crossed the distance in a blink, far too fast for the Orogumo's heightened senses to track. The moment the arrow was unleashed, both girls reactivated and combined their energy shields into a reinforced dome around themselves. The arrow struck the giant spider directly between its cluster of glistening red eyes. There was a wet, punching sound as it pierced straight through the hardened carapace and buried itself deep within the creature's body. The moment it was inside, Allison made a sharp, clenching motion with her fist. The arrow detonated. The massively compressed wind energy was released, expanding with the force of a bomb inside the Jorogumo's body. There was a horrific, wet, tearing sound, and then the creature simply came apart. Her body was shred from the inside out, chunks of internal organs and fragment of the spider's body blown in all directions, splattering against the energy shield with a series of sickening thuds. The fight was over, but the explosion didn't stop there. The concussive force ripped a massive crater in the concrete floor and the wall behind where the spider had stood. A deep, web-like crack shot up through the ceiling, with a sound like rolling thunder. The entire building gave a violent, groaning shudder, and a rain of dust and chunks of concrete poured down from above. "Are you trying to kill us?" Lydia shrieked, ducking instinctively as a large piece of ceiling smashed against their shield. Allison, feeling the building tremble, and seeing the cracks spreading across the ceiling like lightning, scratched the back of her head sheepishly. "I didn't even use my full strength! I was trying not to bring the whole place down!" Lydia grabbed Allison by the collar, her eyes wide with a mixture of fury and panic. "You call this holding back? I swear, you and that idiot husband of yours are trying to get me killed!" Allison rolled her eyes, prying Lydia's hands off. "He's your husband too! And I didn't try to kill you, I just miscalculated my strength a little." "A lil?" Lydia's voice hit a hysterical pitch. "That's exactly what he said before his lightning storm tried to barbecue me. Now this death trap is going to be our tomb." "Then we better not be in it when it falls," Allison shot back. Just then, Jacob's voice cut through their argument, echoing in their minds. "Girls! What was that explosion? The whole building is trembling. Are you okay?" Allison answered telepathically. "We're fine. We already dealt with that woman. She was a Jorogumo, a spider shapeshifter, and I'm the one who caused the explosion." "You need to leave the building, now." Jacob's thought was urgent. "All right, we're leaving now," Allison confirmed. She turned to Lydia, who was still glaring daggers at her. "Stop looking at me like that and let's get out of here before your prediction comes true." Just then, George and his group emerged from a side corridor, leading a stream of dazed and frightened prisoners. George himself had a gash on his forehead that was already knitting closed, while several others nursed bleeding wounds from falling debris. "What happened to you guys?" Allison asked, feigning innocence. "Did the guards do that?" George wiped blood from his eye. "It was the shockwave from the explosion. It threw us into the walls like ragdolls, and the ceiling started coming down on us." "What was that explosion, anyway?" Allison looked away, her cheeks flushing slightly. That was the Spider Woman. She, exploded. Violently, she clapped her hands together, changing the subject. "Anyway, let's get out of here." Lydia folded her arms and gave Allison a profoundly unamused look. Allison responded by sticking her tongue out, then grabbing Lydia's arm and dragging her towards the elevator. "Walter, let's go." Cogman followed, and luckily, the elevator was still operational, though it groaned ominously under the strain. Once everyone had reached the first floor, they fled the shuddering building, not stopping until they were safely hidden in the shadowy alley behind a warehouse a block away. Allison reached out with her mind. "Jay, we're out. Hurry up and finish so you can follow us." "I'll be out soon," Jacob replied. "I already cleared the 2nd through 5th floors. There were only about 30 hostiles total, with only 5 beta werewolves posing any challenge. I'm heading to the 6th floor now to deal with the woman and man in charge." "Be careful," Allison urged. "Don't play with them. Use your full strength from the start." "All right. I'll see you soon." Lydia looked at Allison, her expression having softened from anger to weary concern. "Did you tell him we're out?" "Yeah," Allison said, turning to face the group. "He's dealing with the leaders on the top floor. He'll be out soon." George, who was tightly hugging his wife and newly rescued daughter, looked up with genuine concern. "Aren't you worried about him fighting those people alone? Should we go back to help him?" Lydia let out a short, humorless laugh, her gaze fixed on the cracked and groaning building in the distance. "He doesn't need our help. If we go back in there, we'll just be liabilities he has to protect." She met George's eyes. "The best thing we can do for him now is stay out of the way and let him handle those monsters." Chapter 78, Waiting in the Rubble. Jacob emerged onto the 6th floor, having left a trail of carnage from the 2nd floor up. The moment he stepped from the stairwell into the hallway, a storm of gunfire erupted. Bullets ricocheted off him, tearing his suit but flattening against the impenetrable dragon scales beneath. He kept walking straight toward the shooters, his laughter, a low, maniacal chuckle, echoing unnervingly over the gunfire. He drew his S&W 500 revolver and, with 6 precise shots, dropped 6 guards. He stored the gun back in his pocket dimension, then aimed his index fingers like pistols. Crackling bolts of blue lightning shot from his fingertips, sizzling through the air and striking down the remaining guards, piercing their skulls and killing them before they hit the ground. Silence returned. A single figure remained, a burly woman standing like a sentinel in front of a heavy office door, her glowing red eyes glaring at him with hatred. Jacob walked up to her. "Are you the alpha of those idiots I killed on the 5th floor?" The woman didn't answer with words. Instead, a guttural growl rumbled from her throat as she shifted. Her head distorted into a grotesque, dog-like visage, and black fur sprouted across her body. She grew taller, her form becoming hunched as her arms lengthened into claw-tipped limbs. Jacob looked her up and down with open disgust. "Gross. What kind of werewolf or weird-dog are you, you creepy bitch?" The creature lunged, slashing at him with her claws. Jacob caught one arm, then the other, his grip like iron. Enraged, she snapped her fanged maw at his face. Jacob leaned back, planted a foot on her chest, and held her at bay. "Disgusting," he muttered, watching her drool drip as she snapped her jaws impotently like a rabid animal. With a brutal twist, he snapped both of her arms at the elbows. A sickening crunch echoed in the hall. He then kicked her to the ground, and before she could recover, he spat a glob of molten lava directly onto her head. A sizzling hiss filled the air as the woman's skull melted away in a cloud of smoke. He stepped over the smoldering corpse, muttering as he approached the door, "Creepy bitch. She's even uglier than Peter's alpha form." He reached the door and kicked it open, the frame splintering under the force. Inside the lavish office, a beautiful blonde woman, Elena, sat behind a mahogany desk, looking at him with wide eyes. The albino python coiled around her shoulders hissed in terror, sliding down to cower in a corner. Jacob raised a brow, thinking, "So this is Elena. I saw her in the auctioneer's memories, but she's even more stunning in person." The moment he entered, a primal fear gripped Elena. Jacob smiled, a cold, predatory expression, and walked over. He sat on the edge of the desk directly in front of her, reached out, and gently traced her cheek with his clawed finger. "Why does a beautiful woman like you have to be so evil?" Elena flinched, shaking off the paralyzing fear, and slapped his hand away. "You can't just touch a woman's face like that, you know." Jacob's smile widened. "My bad, I couldn't help myself." "Who are you?" she demanded, "and why are you attacking us?" "I'm the Joker, can't you see?" he said, gesturing to his face. "By the way, do you want to know how I got these scars?" He traced the grotesque smile etched into his nanomask. Elena said, "No, I want to know your real identity, and—" Jacob cut her off. His clawed hand shot out, cupping her face. When she tried to pull away, his other hand caught her by the throat, his grip firm but not crushing. "Stop squirming and look at me." Elena stopped struggling. A slow, confident smile spread across her lips. "As you wish." Her eyes began to glow with a sinister red light as she locked her gaze with his. Jacob seemed unconcerned. "I had a beautiful wife once, just like you," he began, his voice taking on a storytelling tone. "But she was so jealous. One day she saw me talking and laughing with another woman. He traced his claw along her jawline, leaning in so close she could feel his breath. And when I got home, she gave me condom venom, paralyzing me. Then she took a knife. He paused, his eyes boring into hers. And she said, "If you're going to smile at another woman, I'll give you a smile nobody will ever forget." Then she stuck the blade in my face and gave me these scars. He let out a soft, crazy chuckle. The funny thing is, she couldn't stand the sight of me after putting a permanent smile on my face. Just then, Jacob felt a strange stiffness in the hand holding Elena's neck. He let go and tried to clench his fist, but his fingers were frozen, the skin beginning to take on a dull, gray, stone-like texture. Elena laughed triumphantly, scrambling back from the desk. "Finally! I was scared there for a second. I thought my ability wasn't working on you. It seems it's just affecting you slower for some reason." Jacob looked from his petrifying hand to Elena. Her skin had turned deathly pale, and her beautiful blonde hair had transformed into a writhing nest of hissing snakes. "I see," Jacob said, his voice calm despite his predicament. "You're a Gorgon." "It's too late for you to realize that now," she sneered. "You were dead the moment you locked eyes with me." Jacob didn't panic. I was careless. But, in a burst of speed, his good hand shot out and seized her by the throat again. "If I kill you, the petrification stops, right?" Elena's triumphant expression shattered into panic, but it was too late. Jacob released a surge of electricity directly into her body. She convulsed violently, her snake hair writhing in agony, before she slumped into unconsciousness. He quickly inserted his claws into the back of her neck, sifting through her memories at a frantic pace. By the time he was done, the stone-like stiffness was creeping up his legs, and his first arm was almost fully petrified. He opened his mouth and unleashed a concentrated blast of dragon fire, reducing the Gorgon to a pile of ash in an instant. The moment she died, the magical hold on his body broke. The petrified stone of his hand and arm cracked and flaked away, revealing healthy scales and flesh beneath. Jacob clenched his newly restored fist. "That was scary. I almost died." He let out a shaky breath. "Let's not tell Allison and Lydia about this. They'd probably kill me themselves." A smirk returned to his face. "Now let's get the money and wait for that guy Dimitri to come back." He walked to a bookcase lining the wall and pulled on a specific, fake book. With a soft click, a hidden door swung open within the wall. There was no lock. Elena and her partner had been arrogantly confident that no one would be stupid enough to steal from them. Jacob entered the hidden room and let out a low whistle. Stacks of cash were neatly arranged on shelves. From Elena's memories, he knew it totaled around $160 million. He swiftly stored every last bill into his pocket dimension. His eyes then fell on the other items, various vials and bottles filled with preserved organs and blood from different supernatural creatures, alongside an assortment of potions. From the memories he'd absorbed from Elena, he knew their effects. Some strengthened supernatural beings, others healed, and a few restored magical energy. Jacob only took one thing, a small box containing 12 vials of magic recovery potions, which were crafted from magical herbs. He left the rest, his stomach turning at the thought of consuming something made from the body parts of another sentient being. "I've drunk dragon blood potions from the system before," he thought, "but this feels different. This is just creepy. I can't drink a potion made from the organs of another person, supernatural or not." With a wave of his hand, he summoned a jet of fire, incinerating the grotesque collection of potions and organs. He exited the room, and thought, "Too bad there are no other artifacts. They only had the two we already took, the cursed mirror and that dagger." With the loot secured and everyone in the building dealt with, there was no more reason for the structure to stand. Jacob made his way back down to the first floor, and strode out the front entrance. He stopped about 20 meters away, turning back to face the 6-story structure that housed so much suffering. He raised a single hand. The air around him began to warp and shimmer with intense heat. A sphere of hot fire materialized above his palm, growing rapidly until it was a massive 5 meters in diameter, its surface churning with contained devastation. Jacob focused, his brow furrowing slightly as he willed the sphere to compress. It shrank, the energy within becoming denser and more volatile, until it was no larger than a basketball. With a flick of his wrist, he sent the sphere shooting toward the building. It passed through the front door. The moment it reached the center, Jacob made a sharp, clenching motion with his fist. Then, he activated his energy shield. The sphere detonated. There was no sound at first, only a flash of light so bright it bleached the color from the night. Then, a deep, earth-shaking thump was followed by a roar as stone, steel, and glass vaporized in a wave of burning heat. The force shot upward and out, eating the building from the inside. The structure didn't just fall, it came completely apart, crushing inward before being swallowed by a tower of fire that reached for the sky. As suddenly as it started, the fire faded, leaving behind only a smoking, melted pit filled with broken rubble. Jacob found a large, scorched chunk of concrete, sat down, and waited. He didn't have to wait long. A black sedan screeched to a halt near the ruins, and a powerfully built man, Dmitri, leaped out. His eyes frantically scanned the devastation, before they locked onto the clown-like figure sitting calmly amidst the chaos. He stormed over, his voice a low, dangerous growl. "Clown, where is Elena?" Jacob smiled. "I turned her to ash," he said conversationally, as if discussing the weather. "It was a shame, really. She was a beautiful woman. Such a waste." A bestial roar of pure agony and rage tore from Dmitri's throat. His eyes blazed a furious red. "I'll kill you!" He moved in a blur, crossing the distance in an instant, and swung his fist toward Jacob's head. Jacob's own hand came up with casual precision, catching the fist squarely in his palm. The impact created a visible shockwave that rippled outwards, kicking up a perfect ring of dust and debris from the ground around them. The concrete slab Jacob was sitting on cracked violently under the transferred force. But Jacob hadn't moved an inch. He slowly raised an eyebrow, his golden eyes gleaming with predatory interest. "You are strong," Jacob mused, his voice a mix of genuine surprise and dark amusement. He tightened his grip on Dmitri's fist, the bones in the larger man's hand audibly creaking under the pressure. A wide, eager smirk spread across his face. "I hope you can last long enough for me to enjoy our fight." To be continued. Thanks for watching.